Hello everybody and welcome to today's lesson, CSS Forms. We are going to be looking at how to use CSS to make forms look pretty and to improve the look and feel of our forms. So style your HTML forms, make them according to what you want to see and your taste and your feel and your like, and that is what we're going to do. So we're going to go straight into the code section and take an example. So this is sample HTML, which has a form embedded in a div, as you can see, and it has a label for first name, um, and the input for the first name, and that for the last name, and then you have a drop down for the states, right? And I have to make some changes right here. Great. So you have the drop down for the states, right? I have Arizona, New York, California, right? And then you have your submit button, which has input type submit. So this is your sample form. So this is how it looks like, right? You have your first name, enter first name, and then you have last name, enter last name, which is your placeholder, right? So we talked about how to create forms in the HTML forms lesson, so you can go and refresh your knowledge, but just this is just a preview of what how we create forms. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to style our forms. So the first thing that I want to style, or let's create our style block. So first let's put our head, and in the head we have our scripts. Oh, sorry, our style. Good. So now we can begin to style. The first thing I want to style is our text, right? It's these text fields right here, right? So, and how do I style these text fields? I want the inputs, but if I only style the inputs, I'm going to be styling the text, the ones with type text, right? And then the ones with type submit. So I don't just want to style the inputs, right? Because I want to have differentiate between the styling for the type that is submit and the type that is text. So what do? You guessed it. We just learned it in the last lesson. We style the type, and this is what attribute selector being equal to text. Okay, and then in here we can begin to style. Right, so we want our width to be 100%, right? So we want it to be 100% of the space available. Good. So when I refresh it, you can already see that it took the entire space, right? So now the next thing is I want to add some padding, right? So here I'm gonna make it 10 pixels, 20 pixels. Good, right? So when I refresh it, so now I've added a padding. You can see, right? That's been padded now, and I may need some a margin between the input and then everything else. So I'm gonna add a margin. Great. So I'm gonna say 10 pixels, 0 pixel. So now when I refresh this, good. So now you can see the margin uh, has taken effect. So what else do we need to do? Um, I want to be able to set the display to be inline black. Good. And then my border, I want to have a border right here to be 1 pixel, solid, hash, CCC. Okay, so if I refresh this, and maybe before we refresh it, let me add a border radius just to give it some, a little bit of a curve on the edges. All right, and I want it to be 3 pixels, right? And box sizing, I'm gonna set this to the border box. Okay, so now I can refresh this. So now you can see that it has taken effect, right? You have the rounded corners, you have the border sets, right? And then you have your padding and all that also sets. Good. So just to refresh, right? We set the padding, right? Just so we have some space inside the text field, correct? And then we set a bordered inputs so we can have we can just design the border of these inputs, right? So now the next thing that I want to do is the state. I'm looking at the state right now and it's not being styled, but I may want it to just have the same style as the input type, which is text, right? So in order to just let the style affect this drop down, which is the select, right? I can just do this, right? I'm gonna put a comma and just say select. Okay, so now when I refresh this, good. So as you can see now, the state has taken the same style as your input equal text, which is what we want. Good. One more thing is I would want to style my button here differently, but I realized that it's only a few things that I would want to be different from the style up here in this input type. So what I can do is I could just apply the same style to the submit button and then have a different style just to style the things that I want to be different in this button. And show you exactly what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, so nice. I just let the style affect all my inputs, including the type submit. So it's all styled. And then I could rather do beneath this one, and it has to be in this order so that uh, the styles that are not supposed to affect this button will be overridden. All right. So now I can say input, but this time I just want to target the input that has a type equal to submit. I hope you're getting it now. Good. And then, so all I need to do is to change the stuff that I want to change. So I want to set a background color here to for CF50, which is a green color. And then I want the writing, which is the text color, should be white. And then what else do I need? I don't need the border, so I'm just gonna say border, set it to none, right? And I need the border radius, but I want the cursor here should be the pointer. Okay, so good. So now when I refresh this, so now we have the style affecting only the button, right? So this looks like a pretty neat form right now, but we're still going to make some changes because when I hover over this, I would want the color to change. So I'm going to create this input inputs type called submit, but I'm going to add a pseudo class called hover. I'm just gonna say change the background color, and this time I want it to be uh, and all these colors are just maybe coral. Okay, I want it to be coral, and so when I refresh this again, and before we refresh it, I just want to go ahead and do it for the div. Remember, this form is in between a div, right? So the main thing is I want to put a background color on the div just so it gives it some what do you call it? Some background effect, right? So I'm gonna say style this div because it's the only div. It's good for me to do like this, right? If there were so many, I would have put a class and then style the class. But this is okay. And I'm gonna say border radius because I want it to have some radius. This time I'm gonna use 5 pixels. And then background color, I'm gonna say I want it not that gray, but a little bit. So I'm gonna use F2, F2, F2. And then finally, I'm gonna add a pattern to this. I'm gonna make it 18 pixels. Okay, so now I can refresh this. So now we have the div having the effect that we want, right? So finally, you may wanna, okay, so this is by default. If you click on the input, you see this black, but around this, that is the focus, right? You can set your own focus if you want. So all we need to do is to add the focus pseudo class, right? So I'm gonna do it down here. I'm gonna say inputs, and this time I'm only gonna type the text, or the type should be equal to text, and the pseudo class will be focus. And then, oops, no space. Okay, so focus, and now what I want to do with this again is to set the background color to cornflower blue. Okay, so let me refresh this. So now after that, when I just click it, you see that the focus color is now set, right? And maybe this is not the right color because I may have to change the color of the font or the text in here so that it's more visible. But yes, that is the focus. Okay, so this looks like we've come to the end of this lesson. Pretty much you can use everything we've learned when it comes to attributes, selectors, pseudo class, pseudo elements, combinators, everything. In addition with your styling things that we've learned to design your form in a way that you want, and that is easy to read by the user. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next lesson. Bye.